There are 17 anatomical positions the human anatomy may take the form of at any given time. However, the most evident places of analysis you may see these positions are in sport. Today, you will learn all 17 anatomical positions and how they are used in sport for clear representation. To begin, we have the anatomical position for both flexion and extension. These positions are brother and sister as they both correlate with each other but have opposite functions. Flexion is the act of decreasing an angle between two body parts. In simpler terms, it is seen as a contracting between two body parts the majority of the time. Extension is the act of increasing an angle between two body parts. Once again, in simpler terms, it is seen as straightening or opening up between the two body parts the majority of the time. An example we may use for these positions are basketball. When one knows how to shoot a basketball, they produce both anatomical movements using their shooting arm before release. Flexion is at the elbow to bring the ball closer to the face of the shooter. The angle between the joints of the arm, the forearm, and biceps close. The extension is exhibited when the shooter opens up that angle at max capacity and straightens or extends their arm to release the ball with ease and efficiency. A clip of NBA superstar Steph Curry will show the points of flexion and extension as explained. Pay attention to his arms as he is shooting in particular, and here's the clip. That was flexion and extension. Next, we have another brother-sister pairing of anatomical positions with both abduction as well as adduction, with the addition of external rotation. Abduction is the act of moving a body part away from the midline of your body. When your arms go up to the side when you do a jumping jack, this is abduction of your shoulders. Adduction is the opposite of abduction. Adduction is when one brings a body part towards the midline of the body. When you lower your arms to the side when you finish one jumping jack rep. External rotation is the act of rotating one body part out and away from the midline of one's body. External rotation is present when you keep your legs straight and turn your feet outward and to the side. These three movements can be seen in the high majority of modern day popular sporting, as these positions are the main concepts to defense in these sports. When one shuffles left to right or diagonally, they are externally rotating their feet each time they shuffle to keep up with the opponent. When one raises their arms to the side in order to block out space from the opponent running past you, this is abduction. When one lowers their arms to the side for the same reasoning being to protect the space of the defender running past you, it is adduction. The NBA superstar known as Kawhi Leonard, who brought Canada their first NBA championship, is the master of these actions, being acknowledged for his stellar defense. Kawhi presents all three of these anatomical positions within his defense in the following clip. Pay attention to both the movement of his arms and feet. Here it is.
Many lockdown defenders I've analyzed in the past, Kawhi Leonard does not play hip-to-hip defense. He plays more between the basket. You can see there's not a lot of on-ball defense. He's just staying between the ball and the basket, taking away the driving lane, and therefore anything easy.
That was abduction, adduction, and external rotation. Next is internal rotation of a body part towards the direction of the midline of the body. An example being if one's arms were abducted and extended, bending at the elbow joint, so your forearm will have an inward rotation towards your chest while keeping your elbows up. In a up for the chest pass in the sport of basketball, LeBron James will exhibit this exact motion in a full court. Attention to how his elbows internally rotate his forearm to complete the full court pass. Here's the clip.
Down the other end of the floor for the finish. Timeout, Boston. The Heat defense does it again.
That was internal rotation. Next is pronation and supination. Pronation and supination are once again brother and sister type movements. These movements are typically subjected to the wrist. Pronation is the position of the wrist where, when in anatomical position, your palms are facing backwards. Contrary to pronation, from the anatomical position standpoint, supination is the form where your palms are facing forwards. These positions are easily presented when one may catch a baseball. There are two ways one can catch a baseball, and so one way utilizes pronation and one utilizes supination. A clip of two baseball players playing catch presents this clearly. The baseball player on the left is catching using supination. The one on the right is catching using pronation. Pay attention to their wrists and their palms as they catch the ball. Here's the clip.
Left hand, and then I have them just catch the ball with just their left hand. And I'll do this probably about 40, 50 times, or till however long it takes for them to get used to catching the ball.
That was pronation and supination. Next, we have plantar flexion. And plantar flexion is an act that only pertains to the ankle. Example being when ballerinas use tippy toes during a performance. Dorsiflexion is an act that only pertains to the ankle joint as well. This is the motion of pointing your toes once again due to the degree of your ankle changing but in opposite direction. You may see this action exhibited when one kicks a soccer ball in a particular way, resulting in your toes pointing upwards as opposed to downwards. Here's a clip of plantar flexion being used and shown. Pay attention to the ankle and the direction of the toes being pointed.
Beautiful curve of the arch and the instep. And if you don't have that, it can kind of be a mental game of finding angles and lines that look like you have that even though you don't. It's like yin and yang. You have an incredibly arched foot, which is aesthetically pleasing for ballet. You really need to make sure you have strength and the control.
A little bit of wadding inside. So the point work that was done at that time was very minimal, like that, or she might just take a little arabesque and come straight out of it again, just take a pose and come straight out of it. Yes, just to give that appearance of flight.
Dorsiflexion would be the opposite movement. Next, we have eversion and inversion. Eversion and inversion are once again another set of brother and sister pairing of the anatomical positions. Subsequently, these movements are also typically synced with the ankle. Inversion is the act that is related with the ankle joint. This is the motion of having the lateral edge of your foot pressed on the floor. This is not typically a deliberate sports movement, but movement known as inversion is highly in correlation of injuries that are caused in sport. For example, rolling your ankle while running. Eversion is the opposing act to inversion related to the ankle joint. This is the motion of having the medial edge of your foot pressed on the floor. Like the inversion, this is not a deliberate sport movement, as eversion is more related to injury playing a sport can cause. For example, spraining or fracturing your ankle when you accidentally step on a ball and are standing on the medial side of your foot as a result. Here's a clip of a mild basketball injury that shows an inversion injury. Eversion would be bending of the opposite side of the foot. Here's the clip.
Enough of this early on in the NBA, haven't we, this year? Okay, so take a look. Oh, boy. Yep, there it is. That's a good one, too. And when I say good, I mean bad.
Wow. That is a big turn of that left ankle for Dennis Schroeder, right on the left foot of Levert.
That was inversion and eversion. This time we have two sets of brother and sister pair type anatomical positions in both elevation and depression to protraction and retraction. Elevation is simply the movement in an upwards or superior direction. Depression, opposite to elevation, is the movement in a downwards or inferior direction. Protraction is a movement of quote-unquote sticking out of body part or moving a body part in the anterior direction. An easy representation is when you poke your head out. Opposite to protraction, retraction is when you bring back a body part or move a body part in the posterior direction. Each one of these movements are essentially universal to any type of sport as they are very basic movements and positions. The easiest presentation of these anatomical positions would be boxing. This is because in boxing, you always have to position yourself with precision in order to be successful in avoiding getting hit or giving a hit. Floyd Mayweather is one of the greatest boxers of all time and utilizes all of these motions perfectly. In the following clip, pay attention to how he elevates his shoulders significantly and retracts his head when in defensive position to block or protect from punches. In addition, Floyd's entire upper body exhibits the movement of depression when he wants to duck a punch. As for protraction, Floyd will stick out his head before giving a straight punch as shown. Here is the clip. That was elevation, depression, protraction, and retraction. Finally, we have circumduction. Circumduction is a complex anatomical position as it consists of 4 of the previously discussed motions from this presentation. Circumduction is a movement that is mixed with flexion, extension, adduction, and abduction. An example of this movement is a windmill dunk in basketball. When you do a windmill dunk, your arm uses all 4 motions at once. LeBron James is one who uses this position often doing this dunk in particular. Pay attention to the movement of his arms and you will see the motion. Here's the clip. That was circumduction. In conclusion, these are all the anatomical positions that are typically used or involved in a variety of sports. Thank you for listening to my presentation.